Hello and welcome to Casual Fridays here on the Hoeg Law YouTube channel. Hangouts and headlines. It's September 30th, 2022, and I do have to apologize at least a little bit. It's fall in Michigan, and my kids are back in school, which means I'm either having allergies or maybe getting a little something as a special delivery back from them. So you might have heard it towards the end of my appearance on Legal Bite stream yesterday, but I'm dealing with a head something. We're going to get through it together. It's okay. We're still here to have fun. But it is the reason why I only wound up putting up the placeholder this morning as I got up to chat about Happy Meals with y'all because it is Casual Friday. We're going to talk about retro stuff. We're going to talk about nostalgia. Folks, for comments today, for questions, I want to hear about what you love from the past that maybe nobody else remembers, that we can hang out with, that we can have fun with. We don't have a lot of legal stuff here. I saw in the chat before this show started someone asking me to talk about the Tua situation from the Dolphins game last night. I am livid. For those of you that didn't see Tua, and I'm not even going to try his last name. I apologize. I never get it right. But Tua, the quarterback of the Dolphins, had what appeared to be a concussion or other brain injury on Sunday, that football game. The Dolphins wound up reporting it as a back injury. You'll get all sorts of different conflated stories about whether or not that was the case. You can look at the clips, but he stumbles getting up. He's walking around dazed. He's shaking his head, that kind of thing. The NFL lets them do that. Whatever happened with respect to the medical teams, I can't say. We can't speculate here. It seems like they didn't do their jobs, but we don't know for sure exactly what happened. They had a Thursday night game, which is a short amount of rest, even for a fully healthy football team. Tua went out there to play yesterday, and he got hit and swung into the ground very hard. And I would caution anybody to really look at the tapes, even though Amazon showed it about 40 times last night. But his hands curl up. It appears that he has a significant brain damage. And there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked. Hopefully, all of that is wrong, right? Hopefully, Tua gets up in the hospital and is A-okay. But certainly from all appearances on TV, it looked very bad. And I did chat before this story, before the show started, and said I find it difficult to control my anger on that because I love football. I think you guys know this about me. I'm looking forward to like the Michigan-Iowa game tomorrow and things like that. But I do think these teams, both college and professional, get young people into trouble. There's a lot of instances in the NFL where I could talk about them trotting people out there that clearly didn't belong out there. And I can talk about that with my Wolverines. My prior coach about 8 years ago, which time flies, put out somebody that seemingly had a concussion. That was later confirmed. And I was first on the line to say that guy needs to be fired. Like you just can't do that. And so I apologize for the somber start to the Casual Friday. I feel for that situation. I hope Tua is A-okay. I think the Dolphins and the NFL are going to get absolutely pilloried. And I can't tell you that it's wrong. So, we'll see what happens there. I think the question actually in the chat was, could I look at safety policies and protocols and things? Maybe. I mean, there's supposed to be independent redundancies, right? Folks that aren't affiliated with the team's chances of success that are doing these evaluations. But those independent folks are all in some way paid or given attention to by the league, by the teams. And so there's a lot of conflicts that exist in the process as it stands. And I think it's clear that the process failed Tua. And the NFLPA, the Players Association, not to be confused with the NFL. Sometimes I think they should change their name, all the Players Associations, because people get them confused too easily, was already doing an investigation for what amounts to fraudulent medical reporting from the Sunday game, and then putting him back out there on the Thursday game was just... well, as it turns out, it was a very bad decision. In any event, hopefully he's okay. I can't otherwise add to that too terribly much. I don't think I'll do a separate virtual legality. And I'll be honest with you all, it's because it absolutely infuriates me. So I know if I do a VL today, I know what the topic will be. But thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Okay, let's Casual Friday up, right? I've got crap in my head. I've got fun stuff to talk to you all about. Let's talk a little bit about retro stuff. Let's talk about stuff we remember. Let's talk about nostalgia. I saw somebody asking, I think it was Britt, asking what in the world is an adult Happy Meal. We're going to talk about that because I think actually part of this story with McDonald's is they're trying to cash in on nostalgia. I put that in the title, right? I think they're doing it poorly. So we'll talk about that. Terry says, feel better, Hoeg. And the 70s were the best. I had a decision to make when I did the poll before the show. Do I go to the aughts or do I go to the 70s? And I apparently went the wrong direction for some folks, but I did include a none of the above option. The problem is when you have that none of the above option, you only get 3 choices. If I had 4 choices, the 70s would have been included. Yeah, I can. Hey, 70s have some really cool vibes. I tend to be an 80s guy myself right now in terms of thinking of retro. But obviously pop culture in 2022 is very focused on the 80s, and we'll talk about that as well. But thank you. No, I will definitely feel better. I'm not awful. I was, I think shortly after Alita's stream yesterday, I had to do bills. I had to do invoicing. I had to do, it's end of month. Anybody that runs a business, you got end of month, you got start of month, you got all this fun stuff you need to do. And I basically died after that, and got some good rest, but we'll see. Usually I can, even in this state, do the morning and then I slowly collapse. So we'll see. We'll get through it together. Britt says, Hoeg, it's not only the injuries, but until recently, the college players could not profit from their labor. And that's very true. While the institutions made billions, over all the students were locked out of this money. You're not going to get a disagreement from me, Britt. The thing that I said about college football is I do think it's changing in tenor. I do think it's going to feel like a semi-pro league. At a selfish level, I am saddened by that because I think it does feel different. It loses some of its charm. But that is a selfish level. And I think that the kids that are playing for these schools, that are making them so much money, that as we can see, are putting their lives on the line realistically every play, they deserve not just name, image, and likeness, frankly. They probably deserve to get paid even more directly than that. So I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going to be saddened for the feel of the league as I used to love it. But that wasn't mine to love. That's basically the position that I take on this. That was unfair. And so, let college football be what it is. But thank you for the super chat. I agree that these kids all deserve to get compensated for their work. Oh, here's Papa Hoeg. We have to speak out against the abuse in football or we will lose a great game entirely. We've talked about this. My dad and I have talked about this when we watch Sunday Ticket or we're otherwise watching football. It's not just Tua. It's not just any given player. If it gets bad enough, there will be so much liability and so many people turning on it that it won't exist anymore. And I would hope that the stewards of the game that makes them so much money, Roger Goodell makes whatever he makes, $8.5 million a year. By the way, NFL, I'm happy to do Roger Goodell's job better for like an eighth of that, maybe a fourth. But he gets huge amounts of money. And it's such short-term thinking that the league, and the NFL isn't alone in this, is engaged in, that they think advantages themselves. But it's going to kill not just the game as it stands today. It's going to kill the fandom. I felt guilty liking football last night because of how upset I was as to how that whole situation was treated. And if I'm like that, people that are less invested than I am are going to be reluctant to ever get invested in the first place. And they're going to drop out if they're just like, screw this. These guys are just killing people out there. So I agree with you, Papa Hoeg. And I appreciate the super chat. You don't have to super chat me. You could probably DM me right now and I'll read it on live. But I appreciate it, Dad. So yeah, Acromat, I understand your pain about monthly business duties. The thing about starting your own business, being your own boss, lots of great stuff, right? Lots of great stuff. I probably couldn't do a morning show if I were still working at the firm. But I, at least, underestimated exactly how much back office stuff was happening. And I want to apologize to everybody that I undervalued for helping streamline the actual functioning of the widget making, the legal document making, the legal advice doing, whatever, because there is just so much of that back there. So absolutely, the end of month, beginning of month, never my favorite time. And it has to get done. Like, there's no options. So I was sitting there with like tissues, endorsing checks and doing all these various things. You would have laughed. Y'all would have laughed at me trying to get through this yesterday afternoon. Pew Pew, Dad and I are in agreement. Stuff like this will make football obsolete at every level. I agree. Yeah, this is gonna be a very bad story for people that love football. Tua is obviously the most important, but the second level function there is that the people that control the sport are going to kill it. What else we got here? Goodell is a clown. You're not going to get any argument from me. Roger Goodell is my least favorite of the commissioners, and that's saying something. I once spent 20 full minutes booing Gary Bettman. Yeah, Roger Goodell's the worst. Adam Silver's right up there. That we don't have great commissioners. We could probably do like a 4-hour episode on the problem of short-term thinking in modern America and the stewardship of long-term gains and growth opportunities amongst all sorts of enterprises in this country. But that sounds vaguely like politics to me, even though I wouldn't put it under any specific political patina. I don't want to do that on Casual Friday, so maybe we'll save it for later. My goodness. Britt says, Hoeg, the feel of the league was different before it became big business. Once the top schools were making millions of dollars a year, change had to happen. You're talking about the NCAA. Yeah. I don't disagree. When I grew up loving college football, it was a little bit more chill. Fewer games would be on TV, for instance. So if you saw your team, that was great. Not every Michigan game was on TV, which sounds hard to believe now. Michigan's one of the bigger draws in the NCAA. Yeah. I mean, this is a great topic, actually, because change is a part of life. The league is changing. We have to give that up. I'm nostalgic for how it used to be while recognizing that was probably an unfair set of circumstances. In fact, I'm willing to commit to it being unfair. This is actually a really nice segue that we're having with all this stuff. Who knew football was the way in? But they are not kids. They are adults who've been given a great deal of special attention since they were in 7th grade. It's not like there is a level playing field. Free college is enough. I mean, I just disagree. So here's the situation, right? Playing this game for their school is going to make, let's say, the University of Michigan $100 million. So that money is coming in. The question then becomes, where should that money go? What is the right way to think about this? And yeah, you can block them out. Now, I think you're probably going to lose an antitrust case in the year 2022 if you keep up that process, which is why you're seeing NIL and other things in college football. But let's say that wasn't an issue. Yes, you can get that $100 million, but what are you going to do with it? Even the school that wants to help the athletes with that $100 million can only build so many waterfalls in the athletics facility, right? At some level, it just makes sense to get that compensation out. This is why I've never really argued with professional compensation for sports either, right? When we talk about $1 billion franchise, that money's coming in. And you say, well, that you shouldn't get that much money to throw a ball. Maybe not. I can't make society's judgments for them, but enough people are interested in paying the money to watch somebody throw a ball that money is coming in, and you can either decide to have it go to the team, the owner, or the players, right? So to my mind, then at that point, all right, we're just talking about a pie that's been split up because people have been satisfied or not, and they love to boo the Fords or whatever they're doing with the ticket money that they're spending. That money is coming in, and then it's just a question of how should that be split in a reasonable way. Now, if you lock everybody out, yes, you get to keep more of that money, but is that fair? If you don't lock everybody out, then yeah, you're talking about paying the people that are actually providing the product. And I think that's probably closer to the line. Now, I do think that the NCAA, honestly, I think the MLB, I think the pro leagues are running the risk of coming up against antitrust regulation as it's reviewed for what has been done for the past 100 years in the case of baseball and 20 or 30 years in the case of football and the other sports. And they know that. And that's why you're seeing these slow pushes in various directions. Collective bargaining itself in this particular context is probably going to be under question, especially at the MLB level. We're seeing that from the minor leagues pushing on the major leagues. But we're getting deep into the weeds here. Inside baseball has never been a more appropriate term than when we're talking about these kinds of things. That, Sarah says, it's already been a fully pro league, not even semi-pro, just the wrong people were getting paid. Just look at the lack of funds and facilities in baseball, semi-pro, and farm leagues versus the NCAA football. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the conversation. As I just said, Andy says 70s and 80s were both epic in their own way. Rolling around in the back of station wagons, Stretch Armstrong, light brights, recording music from the radio, being able to stay out till the street lights turn. You know, some of that is just like parenting techniques from those decades. But yeah. I mean, there's lots of good stuff back there. There's lots of good stuff right now that it's difficult to see until you're actually separated a little bit. Like the stuff that is going to be memorable, we can't even recognize here in 2022 until you get to, I don't know, maybe 2052, God willing. Guilty, says Pew Pew. That's the exact feeling. It was like picking up an iPhone directly from the factory with the safety nets. Yeah. I mean, I felt guilty watching that yesterday. There's no question. PE, my son quit playing high school football because he didn't like getting hurt. That's how he worded it. Yeah, undoubtedly the case. Even when football's working right, it appears to be a trying type sport. I didn't play football, so I can't speak to that experience specifically myself. Nathan says, you guys can all come and enjoy the Aussie League footy. Our contact rules are a bit better, and you have to bounce the ball like a basketball if you're running with it. That sounds amusing. What shape is your Aussie football? Is it the same kind of prolate spheroid? I don't. How do you bounce it? Now I want to watch YouTube clips. All right. Maybe you put something on my plate for something to do this weekend. A political patina, Patina, my favorite new quote. Smiling, laughing on the floor emoji. Absolutely. Gave up on the NFL 5 years ago. I'm not going to defend the NFL today. Question on it. As a non-American, no idea about football. Don't some students get on sports scholarships so you don't risk your health? You don't get an education. Yes. Yeah. It's yes. In terms of risk, most of the schools that I follow, the bigger schools at least, have gone to a 4-year scholarship. So if you do get injured or you don't perform or you're cut or those kinds of things, you keep your scholarship. So you get that education. But in general, yes, you're expected to go and play football for whatever that amount of money is. Now, as university tuitions skyrocket even past inflation, that becomes kind of relatively more valuable. But it really is essentially a kind of work program in which you don't have to pay them to work for them. It's an unusual circumstance even here in the United States. What else we have here? Crazy Cat Queen, I love football. My grandpa and I bonded over the Cowboys, and it was the one thing my daddy and I could enjoy together when I was in high school and being a rebel. Papa Hoeg, you saw him in the super chat. One thing that I have tried to do as long as I have lived near him is to go and watch football and on Sundays in general. Sometimes that doesn't work out, but very often, a number of the weeks during the season, we watch football, and that's our time together. And it's fantastic. And I get that. But yeah, this was a bad one yesterday, folks. This was a bad one. Let's get the Hoeg household into Aussie rules and rugby. You guys are always like at the opposite end of the season and the opposite end of the day. So I'm going to have to figure out what time that would even be to follow. Maybe I'll come up with a favorite Aussie rules football team. I couldn't even guess what the names are. Is one of them the Kangaroos? Whichever one is most closely related to the Kangaroos, I'll be fans of them. Caitlin, I grew up in a family that lives and breathes football. Both brothers played. My father was the president of the league, and my mom was cheerleading coordinator. Me, I loathe football. Laughing emoji. Remembering growing up, I probably would have come out the same way with that much emphasis on one thing. I honestly became a Michigan fan because I lived in East Lansing at the time. And if you're familiar with Michigan geography at all, East Lansing is the home of Michigan State University. And everybody at my school wore Michigan State outfits. And the kind of person I was, I said, you know what? I'm a Michigan football fan. And that was really the start of me loving the Wolverines for my whole life, was being contrarian. We come to fandom in different ways, folks. Tanya says, I'm really mad that the 90s is considered retro. How can we not consider the 90s retro? Neon piping, Trapper Keepers. 90s is retro. No, it's retro. It's a longer time ago than I would like to admit. My goodness. What else we have here? Northern Wanderer, I've never thought about sport and player salaries and university scholarships like this. Thanks. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, certainly. And it's going to continue to get more interesting as we go further. Let's see here. Aviation fanatic. My mom used to joke that my dad had 2 sons, but it was his daughter who watched football with him every week. I absolutely love football, baseball because of my dad. Yeah. That's how I got into sports. Definitely was my dad. And then I also started playing like Sega Genesis sports games, which is actually how I learned the rules of things like hockey. College football has always left a bad taste in my mouth. You have people risking their health, which is their right, but so much money gets made and their scholarships, it does not seem right to me. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I think you're right. People should be allowed to make their own decisions, and if they view this as a legitimate exchange for their services, who am I to get in their way? The problem is with an outside force stepping on and saying this will be a legitimate exchange for your services, and as NIL has come into play, that has been blown up. Now, I don't think they handled even the thought process behind NIL correctly, because they are now allowing kind of booster clubs to just pay salaries in a way that goes against the spirit of the rules that they passed, but they don't have the enforcement arm to do anything about it. So it's kind of crazy right now. I have to keep reminding myself that football ain't soccer. Always a reminder. Yes, every time I say football here, I'm probably talking about American football, unless in direct reference to Ted Lasso, because I like the phrase footballers. I think we should call all of our sports athletes basketballers and baseballers and footballers, and then American footballers. Hockeyers, that one doesn't work. It needs to have ball at the end. All right, we've learned something here today, folks. Hoeg is a rebel. Yes. Yeah. I wore Michigan Wolverines gear to a school in East Lansing. I did that. Yes, 90s is retro. Lol. Aptly from Disney Nerd 85. Good picture of Epcot, by the way. Or as we like to call him, Big Bally in the Hoeg house. Hoeg is subtly calling us old. Not any more than I'm calling myself old, Alexis. Not any more than I'm calling myself. Britt Cormier, the closest thing I can compare the free college to is being paid in company script, which I thought was outlawed a while back. Yeah, it's got that look to it. But again, yes, company script is outlawed. Scholarship money is permitted. You can still pay the cost of attendance. There's a whole lot more complications that go into that. But yes, I think overall, that's going to change even more in the next few years. Sardanisms. I was born in 91. My clearest memory of 90s pop culture is carrying a bright primary color Walkman to the after-school program. Was it yellow? Was it a yellow sports Walkman? Because I had one of those. Absolutely. 80s was 20 years ago. 90s was 10 years ago. Fight me. Laughing emoji. I'm not going to fight you. That feels about right to me. That feels about right to me, Iris. Absolutely. 60s are mine. Acid rock, long hair, halter tops, Woodstock, smiling, blushing emoji. All right. Yeah, I see 60s to me are films of those kinds of things. I'm a big fan of like the space race documentary. So I've watched like 63 to 69 a lot in that context. But that's a very specific. It's funny how we think of decades, or at least I do, in the nature of like what their camera technology was. Like the 60s has a specific look to it, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, as the cameras grow up. And we haven't had those kind of big changes in taking photography of things since, I don't know, the early 2000s. So maybe everything will just become stagnant and we'll just be a total monoculture from here. I don't know. Hockey has rules. Trying to figure out 2-line passes and offsides when you are a youngster is very tricky, unless you're trying to work through it with NHL 94. Nirvana is oldies. Isn't it fun when they add new music to the oldies station? I mean, isn't that great? Don't you feel young when they add like the music that you remember driving around to during your senior year of high school to the oldies? It's great. It's good stuff. NIL is a disaster, really? Yes. Yeah. In terms of like people paying attention or control or whatever, there's nothing there. So we're getting a Wild West. We're definitely getting that. I still have all my Garbage Pail Kids. Did I admit that? That's awesome. I am sure that is worth a fortune. I'm not sure of that. But I remember Garbage Pail Kids. I do. They're just trying to avoid a Supreme Court ruling, the NCAA. They are. Absolutely. Let's see here. What else we got? Even school makes you risk your mental health. To some extent. So there are a lot of stresses at school. But it's easier to see the concussions, I think. And maybe that's its own problem. We can talk about that at some point, too. Why do the McDonald's adult Happy Meals toys look like defective ones off the line? You're spoiling it. Yes. Shh, don't tell anybody. This is just between you and me, Half-Blood Hella. Go Buckeyes, says Wendy Queen. See, I say this for you, Wendy. Go Buckeyes. Hey, I want them to be undefeated when we play them, and then they can be defeated. I'll take being called old because we got to experience those great decades in person. Absolutely. That is a very positive way to look at things. That is a very casual Friday, hangouts and headlines, silver lining way to look at seasoning, right? I participate in a show on Sundays on a channel called Seasoned Gaming. What does that mean? The seasoning means we're old. But it also means we've seen some stuff, and we can talk about some stuff that maybe people that aren't as seasoned can't talk about with the same kind of perspective. Seasoning is a good thing. Absolutely. Sardinism says, I feel like I shouldn't judge football so harshly when I like seeing MMA highlights, and yet it feels different. Maybe because the ref at MMA is watching each person to step in if needed. I don't watch MMA. It's not my kind of thing. But yes, I think if you feel like these people are agreeing to a certain amount of risk and the league, the arbiters, the referees are taking care of them, I think that is distinct from what we saw yesterday, right? The NFL, when it's properly functioning, is a similar kind of experience. You're looking at something that says, yeah, there's inherent risk in slamming our bodies together, but we believe that there's the proper protocols in place. Yesterday, to me, looked like a failure in protocol. And you've got people fighting about it on social media right now. There was an independent neurologist, all these kinds of things. If there were, then there's a failure in process to me, just looking on the outside as to what happened in the last 4 days with respect to that player. So I think you can look at it and say it's okay for people to risk themselves. They're allowed. That's their body. They're allowed to do it in exchange for large amounts of money if they are so inclined. But the structures around it have to be protective. And I think that failed yesterday. That's Sarah. But we also know that 17 and 18-year-old brains' decision-making abilities are not fully formed yet. So by signing, they're risking their health and future in ways they can't fully appreciate yet. Yes. Okay. I mean, I have problems with that as a thesis in terms of how the law is set up. I didn't write the laws, but we can talk through it, which is to say 18-year-olds can sign contracts, right? That's the age of majority in almost every state in the United States. And if it's not that, it's less. And so, we let them get drafted. We let them do various things. We let them vote. And I think that at that point, we have to accept that for all purposes, or we have to re-examine the premise. So that's the kind of thing that I don't love. You also see that, of course, with like student loans and things, right? Universities have not been providing the value that they've said that they've been providing for decades now because their tuition has gone up so high in respect of those various things. So I'm sympathetic to folks that made the decisions that they made and don't get the value proposition that they got out of it. But I mean, I think at that point you turn towards hopefully helpful advisors, whether that's parents or others in a parental role. And I think that's one of the failings that we've had. We're getting very societal today. But that's, I think, the conversation that needs to be had. But if we're willing to do all those things for 18-year-olds, I don't think we can suddenly take that away for signing a scholarship. So maybe that's something that we'd have to look at a more fundamental basis, right? I had a yellow sports Walkman. I did too. Every Friday watching TGIF till it was time for bed. That's right. It's Friday night and the mood is right. We're going to have some fun, show you how it's done. TGIF. It's a little inside out person just put the memory ball in my head there. We're just going to sing a little bit. Age is a state of mind. It's good. I'm like 27 permanently. I'm a confused older Gen Z here. Yeah, that's all right. We have everybody here. We could talk. This is nostalgia casual Friday. Retros. 60s was my time. 70s hair metal. I love it. Tanya Fox. Yeah, basically the first 4 years of the 90s were the residual 80s. The funny thing is, I think if you actually look at the cultural mores, for the most part, it's on the fives. When we think of the 80s, It's like 85 to 95, give or take, 84 to 94, something like that. Like that's the feel of the 80s. And it goes like that in my experience when we're talking about the decades and like what their cultural contribution was. Something that is not the zeros. But yes, I think that there are residual 80s, as it were. 80s had great music, but I like to forget the neon fashion. 90s were just fun, and I'm a Gen Xer. Rolling on the floor laughing emoji. Yeah. Those were the days. Yes, Hoeg, I love the colors of the 1950s movies. It's very recognizable. Absolutely. When they're fully playing around in Technicolor. Yes. Yeah. Movies are a great way to show. And you can... My wife is sometimes impressed by my ability to say like a year for a movie, but for the most part, the way it looks will tell you the decade, and then you can just kind of remember what year or what range of years it's from, because I still get credit if I'm a year off. So that's absolutely part of what we do here, watching old movies, seasoned with sparkly sprinkles. I am also seasoned now. There you go. Francie Luhu became a YouTube member. Welcome, Francie. Thank you for becoming a member. That's awesome. Oh my God, dial-up internet, painful. Yeah, it's fun. Nobody's of sound mind enough to totally sign away their rights. By definition, you are under duress. Well, I mean, it's not slavery when we're doing sports, regardless of what Colin Kaepernick might say on these kinds of things. And I do think, as a society, you have to be cautious about saying you don't have the authority to do this thing with your body on your choice. I agree that there can be local parentis and we can look at those kinds of things, but you have to be very, very careful when you say we know better than you. That's my feeling on these things. And we're getting into some fun stuff this morning. Hoeg Law, what's the best 2-player board game for inexpensive? My husband and I, when we go camping without the kids. So you're probably also looking for something that is pretty svelte. I'm going to recommend a card game that I really like for 2 players right now. And I have a bunch of these. So, we can talk offline or elsewise. But I'm going to recommend a card game called Rad Lands, which is not just an homage to the 80s, but it's RADLANDS. It is a very small box. And it is essentially a little bit of a deck building game, but is awesome. It is short games, lots of cool synergies, lots of interesting choices. It was actually recommended to me to begin with by my brother, who is the game designer. I'm going to recommend Radlands, or if you're looking for something a little bit more structured, I really love Seven Wonders Duel. Those are my choices for you right now, and I think they are awesome. But let me know. Let me know how those go if you get those. Otherwise, yeah, I could talk about 2-player games all day because it's one of the things I can definitely get to the table here at my house. 1991 was the greatest musical year. I would have to be told exactly what songs came out in 1991 because I don't think of things that way. Step by Step. Ooh, baby. Thank you. Hair metal was the 80s. The Fair Hair was the 70s. I'm an elder millennial, but I remember so much more 80s stuff. That millennial line is constantly shifting, right? Gen X was my generation for a moment, and then it got eaten by another generation. I don't know if Gen X still exists. Who knows? What else we have here? I was born in the 80s, so that's the best decade. Sure. Brought us you, the Heathers. Absolutely. I'm a distraction to the class, says Pew Pew. Maybe. We're just having fun here. It's Casual Friday. We'll talk about whatever anybody wants to talk about. You want to bring up your favorite board game from the 80s? I can do that. I really loved a board game called Dark Tower, which had a giant electronic machine. I think it's actually from like 1979. And when Restoration Games made a return to Dark Tower with a giant castle, I was one of the first people to kickstart it because that is just awesome. And I have it, and we put it up from time to time, and it remains awesome to have a giant castle in the middle of your table. Sometimes toy factor in a board game matters, folks. In this one, you put in skulls, and the skulls make a noise, and the castle spins around. It's grand. I can't recommend it more. But is it the best board game ever? Probably not. But does it have a giant electronic castle? Probably yes. There we go. What's the best board game? Terry says Mousetrap. I loved Mousetrap. It's just fun. Rube Goldbergs are a fun concept, right? And I used to love those as conceptually. I don't know that we ever wound up playing Mousetrap as Mousetrap. I don't know that that game is cool. But certainly the stuff in the middle of the board was very, very cool. Mousetrap. Lol, I'm a mystery date girl. Oh, I've played mystery date. I had sisters. Kidding me? That's actually some pretty good game design I would offer. And I played the Saved by the Bell version of Mystery Date. How about that? That's right. I'm cool. And you all are with me. I love the Labyrinth board game. I don't think I know one from like David Bowie, The Power of the Babe. I don't know that one. For some reason, when I hear Jabarja's Rhythm of the Night, it makes me smile. Doesn't matter what headspace I'm in. Yeah, Rhythm of the Night. It's a good one. We played with all the 80s toys that we got from garage sales. The 90s toys were too expensive. We just saw them in stores when grocery shopping. Garage sales. I remember garage sales. Yeah, I hear that. 80s toys are awesome. And my Transformers were super cool. I had a little purple dinosaur guy that was awesome. I loved Mousetrap and Aggravation. I played all the time with my grandma. Oh, and Backgammon. Oh, yeah, the classics are great. Classics are great. Prototopics, David jumping in. Best board game is Risk. Kamchatka was always a problem for me, David. I was that guy that would hole up in Australia and wait for everybody to beat on each other and then come flying out of Australia. That was my move. So yeah, Risk is good. I like the legacy Risks. I like legacy games in general. They're fun. I used to hate them. The idea of ripping up a card still gives me hives. My daughter, when we play these legacy games, comes in and takes the card and rips it right next to my ear because she knows it makes me agitated. Something about buying things and then destroying them, I don't love it. But Risk is great. Great concept, simply managed. Mrs. Hoeg Law says, I don't think anyone knows what to do with the people born between 78 and 84, so I just call that group the Star Wars generation. A new hope for mankind. Wheel of Fortune board game. Yeah, I remember that with the little spinny letters. Let's see here. Gen X still exists, says that Sarah defiantly. They're just fewer in numbers and too often ignored. I consider myself to be the Oregon Trail generation. That Sarah has dysentery. That slice of time between Gen X and millennial/elder millennial. I like elder millennial as a concept. That sounds like a sci-fi fantasy thing. Like in the Dark Crystal, elder millennial is that person that gives you the wise, sage advice before you find Falcor and really fight for your destiny. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Screech. Saved by the Bell. Saved by the Bell references. Ticket to Ride, very popular board game. Did you ever play 1313 Dead End Drive? Yes. Yes, I did. I can picture that box in my head. That we played when I was a kid, definitely. I miss table arcade games in bars. It taught you self-discipline, not to swear in public. That comment took me for a ride, Dana. I like that. Yeah, I miss those too. I miss just in general the arcade machine at the front of the restaurant, although I don't know what I would do with it as an adult. It used to be when the adults got boring, you could ask for a few quarters and you could go play Elevator Action or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or what have you. And I remember that pretty vividly. And then you'd come back to the table and be like, are we leaving yet? That kind of thing. But no, they don't really exist anymore. Nostalgia. This is a fun episode. It's a fun episode. Let's see here. Technically, generations aren't scientifically broken up, so they shift due to whoever's reporting on it. Very true. I don't think generations exist. That's my opinion. I was going to try to track down Mall Madness, but it's like $200 now. I recognize the name. I don't think I can like put a knowledge to the game. Mall Madness. I had to wait until I was an adult to buy myself Mousetrap. Mom was wise. Mom saw lots of pieces. Yeah, nobody's Mousetrap survived very long, at least not in my house. We never played board games. I feel like I missed so much. Today is always a great day to start. One of the things Mrs. Hoeg Law has asked me to do is put together board game lists because it's one of the most frequent questions here in the space. I would love to. We have so many board games, and there are so many new awesome ones coming out basically every week that you can find something that you're going to enjoy, whether that's a murder mystery or a tactical war game. I love board games to death. So, you know, for my 8th show, we'll just do board game reviews and discussions. Who knows? 1313 was a great board game. Yeah, I remember 1313. Mousetrap was the best, except for the whole setup thing, especially the final trap. Yeah. We all have anxiety because of freaking aggravation. Best board game, Settlers of Catan. Settlers, I would argue, was one of the games that really brought kind of hobbyist board gaming into the public eye. So I will always thank Settlers for that. I don't like it as much as some, but Settlers of Catan is a fun game with a lot of cool choices. I don't know how many board games, but I love Scotland Yard. Any recommendations of mystery games? If you haven't played them, I love the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective series of mystery games. A little bit less scoring or tactics or anything like that, but very good mysteries and a lot of fun to play with a partner or with a small group. I wouldn't take it too big. And they've got about 4 of those, I think. But I highly recommend them. Those are awesome. Mrs. Hoeg Law says, I would not want to play Risk with Prototopics. Oh, we're going to have David over to the house. We're going to play hardcore board games. We're going to play Diplomacy, and we're going to dress up as our various stereotypically dressed countries. And we're going to bring David in, and it's going to be great. Kamchatka, word of the day. Kamchatka was my bane in Risk, man. My bane. Let's see. David, you were wrong. The best board game is Monopoly. Fun fact, everybody in my house refuses to play Monopoly with me. True story. Yay, I'm Generation Star Wars. There you go. Password. It's awesome. Let's see. I'm a 93 baby. Does that make me a millennial because I don't want to be? You know what? You don't have to let other people put labels on you, Caitlin Williams. You can be whoever you want to be. You want to be Gen X? You want to just describe yourself as the Caitlin generation? I'm all for it. Don't let journalists or other social scientists tell you what you have to believe and believe in. The more you know. Yay, leafy, fifi, foo. But if we're the Star Wars generation, we get lightsabers. That's too dangerous. Can you imagine the liability issues if people had access to lightsabers? Just look at some of the stuff in Star Wars. How many injuries would there be if people could just roll out with lightsabers? Come on, honey. Come on. Xenials, a.k.a. the Oregon Trail generation. Like, I don't know where X lives if there's something called a Xenial. Pew Pew says Xenial is absolutely a thing, as if responding to what I just said. We had dial-up in our formative years. Boys especially know what I'm getting at. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. A different kind of nostalgia. Does Hoeg not know the Elder Millennial sketch? Is that like Saturday Night Live? Last time I watched Saturday Night Live was like in the 90s. Pizza Hut. Game of Life. Trivia Adventures. I was born in the 60s, saw Star Wars in the theater. Favorite toy way back when were the Micronauts, which I don't recognize as Slagator Fantabulous, but I love the name. So that's pretty cool. If I'm born in 87, what am I then? A millennial? It'll change. You don't even have to label yourself on any of these things because 5 years from now, somebody will say that generation didn't exist and now you're the whatever generation. Ms. Pac-Man, Pinball Pete's, Social Construct. We're getting philosophical here on Hangouts and Headlines. What a day. What a day. The Game of Life game, Clue. We used to invent and make board games. 70s was a craft handmade decade. That's cool. I love it. Mrs. Hoeg saying, born technically millennial, but feel more Gen X. Absolutely. You are what you feel. This chat is awesome. Thanks, guys, says Shireen. I'm having fun with everybody. We're a little behind here, and I do have at least a small article to do. Maybe we'll do that right now. Keep talking about retro stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about nostalgia. So if you followed the TV show Mad Men, a little show that got some amount of acclaim, one of my favorite speeches in Mad Men, and I guess this is a spoiler, is Don Draper at the end of season 1. He's got from Kodak what they're calling the wheel, and it's a slideshow projector. And he's trying to figure out how to sell this thing. And he comes upon this notion of nostalgia. And how he describes it is one of my favorite bits of writing in television, maybe even in movies, in a little while. I'm going to read it to you. I'm not going to do it as well as John Hamm and Don Draper did. But again, he's trying to sell a projector, and this is what he says. He says, nostalgia. It's delicate, but potent. Teddy, who's another character on Mad Men, and these are advertising executives, right? Teddy told me that in Greek, nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound. It's a twinge in your heart far more powerful than memory alone. This device, the wheel, isn't a spaceship. It's a time machine. It goes backwards and forwards. It takes us to a place where we ache to go again. It's not called the wheel. It's called the carousel. It lets us travel the way a child travels, around and back again, to a place where we know we are loved. And I love that notion because it's also presented very well in this episode where he's reflecting on his childhood, as Mad Men so often does, right? Like it's the procedural kind of model. Whatever your story is about whatever your work story is. But it's such an interesting notion because nostalgia really is that ache, right? That, oh, I wish it could be the way things were. And we don't really, because everything is cotton candyified. Everything is rose-colored glasses. But there are things that are there to miss. I think somebody referenced, going out until the lights came on and coming back home. And, kids don't get to experience that. I know my kids don't. And it's a different world. But, you miss that. You miss that feeling of adventure. You miss that feeling of independence. And I think when McDonald's, agrees to something like this as a marketing campaign, that nostalgia is what they are trying to sell. So here we have in NPR, so real news is how we might describe this. It's not somebody's blog post. McDonald's will have adult Happy Meals this October. And I saw people making jokes about what you put in an adult Happy Meal before this episode started. And the answer is like you put grotesqueries into the meal, but we'll talk about that. The overall nature of this thing makes a lot of sense for what is a very popular nostalgic feeling kind of set of years, whether that's because of the pandemic or what have you. People are focused on the past. For a limited time only, Happy Meals aren't just for kids. Now, I got news for you, McDonald's. Happy Meals were never just for kids. They are well-priced, satisfying meals, as long as you don't need 14 patties and whatnot, that I have regularly gotten for members of my household that are kids to someone. They have parents, but not what you would generally describe as kids. McDonald's teamed up with the fashion streetwear brand Cactus Plant Flea Market, that's where we say uh-oh, to release an adult meal box complete with a classic character toy. Is it though, GIF? One day you ordered a Happy Meal for the last time and you didn't even know it, McDonald's said on its Facebook page earlier this month. Now, how does that not match up with what we just read from Don Draper, right? You ordered a Happy Meal for the last time and you didn't even know it. Now, outside of the fact that I have kids, so I've ordered Happy Meals since then, and I also get Happy Meals for people that ask for them because they are, again, like a more reasonable quantity of food in certain circumstances, definitely. Outside of that, this is that carousel notion, right? Think back to what you felt like when you got a Happy Meal box after soccer practice, when your mom let you go and get a ice cream cone from the McDonald's. Wow, what a feeling. Starting next Monday and running through October 30th, McDonald's will offer the Cactus Plant Flea Market Meal Box. Order that at the drive-thru, where adults can get a taste of childhood nostalgia. The box comes with a meal and a classic McDonald's character, Grimace, the Hamburglar, Birdie, and newcomer Cactus Buddy. NPR, you're killing me here on this. Cactus Buddy is apparently the mascot of, wait for it, Cactus Plant Flea Market. That's not a newcomer to the McDonald's character lineup. That is a part of their marketing deal. It's all right, NPR. We're going to get through this together. Cactus Plant Flea Market fans can also win merchandise by participating in a sweepstakes through the McDonald's app. We're taking one of the most nostalgic McDonald's experiences and literally repackaging it in a new way. It's really what repackaging means. That's hyper relevant for our adult fans. Uh-oh. Tariq Hassan, McDonald's USA Chief Marketing and Customer Experience Officer, said in a statement Tuesday, "This isn't the first time McDonald's has teamed up with big pop culture names to boost sales. In 2020, it teamed up with American rapper Travis Scott, marketing his favorite meal. Oh, is it unusual? A quarter pounder, fries, and a Sprite." I love marketing. I really do. How do you upsell a quarter pounder, fries, and a Sprite? It's like the most baseline meal you could probably order. And in 2021, McDonald's released the BTS meal, a collaboration with the South Korean boy band. And that's all NPR's got for us. Now you might say, okay, it's a weird article, NPR. That's like a marketing initiative. That's just their press release, right? Well, it got picked up everywhere. McDonald's is introducing adult Happy Meals, says IGN amidst the ads. McDonald's is making Happy Meals cool for all ages this October with a new menu item. And yes, the boxed meals come with toys. How does the marketing spiel get like directly into the journalistic outlets, right? He's making them cool for all ages again. We could judge these things. You know what? Let's judge these things. Let's look at what this actually is, shall we? The Cactus Plant Flea Market Meal Box, a meal with a side of art. Uh-oh, I say for the third time. Cactus Plant Flea Market, or CPFM, is in the house with a limited edition box design and collectibles. Your faves, like Big Mac and 10-piece chicken McNuggets, now come with a designer touch. So already, you're making it adult by putting in foods that aren't in Happy Meals. I've never liked Big Mac, but that's a personal preference. Order in the app for a chance to win one of these shirts or hoodies that all have Cactus Plant Flea Market in basically above the reference to McDonald's, which is interesting. And folks in the chat, tell me if this is a brand that you recognize, right? Because I had never heard of these guys at all. And their website only consists of a $70 t-shirt, a $75 towel, and $60 boxer briefs. And I couldn't find a way to get to more on this website if it exists. And honestly, I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm fully willing to accept that I'm old here. But is this a brand that any of you have ever heard of? I'd be interested to know. And then we get to where things get real weird. You see these guys? Can you collect all four? Do you see anything off about them? So this, again, is supposed to be a nostalgia play. Nostalgia is written into the McDonald's Facebook post, into the NPR quote, into the articles themselves, that this is a reimagining of adult. And for some reason, Grimace got even scarier. Like, the notion of a Grimace was already a little bit creepy. I love the big guy, but it was already just right on the line. You give him 4 eyes. And what are we even talking about? Now, this guy on the end, who looks like he was drawn by like a 6-year-old, is apparently the new Cactus Buddy. He has 4 eyes. Grimace has 4 eyes. Birdie has 4 eyes. Hamburglar, 4 eyes. I don't understand. Fundamentally, if we look at the toys here, you've screwed up your nostalgia play by not making it a Happy Meal. You further screwed it up by making the toys weird as hell. And now I'm supposed to be enthused. And I think that this would have worked. Honestly, right? I said we are in the midst of 80s nostalgia in particular kind of push, right? We just talked about Stranger Things on this channel. There isn't more 80s nostalgia anywhere online. We also have the Goldbergs, right? Which, while outlived and might last longer than the entirety of the 80s and 90s at the rate that it's going, is all about thinking about childhood and thinking about the 80s. Heck, the biggest movie of the year is a freaking sequel to a 1980s gem, and Maverick is fantastic. I love it. I highly recommend it. But it's clear that this is an easy kind of push to make. I understand why McDonald's makes the choice it makes. And then it teams up with the $70 t-shirt folks, and they make hideous malformations of their characters. When I think what people probably wanted was something that looked a little bit more like this, right? These toys were pretty normal at one point in time. Yes, again, kind of the notion of living knowledgeable chicken nuggets is a little bit weird because you're otherwise eating the chicken nuggets at the same time. I'm not going to get into the existential disturbingness of all this, but these were toys that like kind of checked out. Or if you're from another era, you got the hamburger transformer. You might remember this guy. Lion King stuff from the 90s. You know, you can go and look at all this stuff. What it definitely wasn't was this kind of thing. It definitely wasn't 4-eyed freak toys, right? And I can't imagine displaying them. And I can't imagine sidling up to the drive-thru and asking for the Cactus Plant Flea Market meal box. So here we are. So I wanted to do this story because I found it funny. I found it interesting that it was when I was looking and when I'm setting up these episodes, especially Casual Friday, I look at like trending and like what people are interested in and what they're searching for. And like this actually came up a lot. So this was talked about a lot. This was an effective kind of launch news item. It hits NPR for Pete's sake. But is it going to be an effective marketing item? I'm going to go with sources point to no. What do you think of this? Do you know what a Cactus Plant Flea Market is? What do you think of these toys? It's absolutely crazy to me that you would go out with an initiative like this and make them look like that. That's my feeling. I'm going to roll back a little bit, see what other chat items we have, but it's crazy. Tara says, were they in an accident with acid in the Joker? I think you could create a story about that, right? They got in trouble and they got mutated, but then I just want turtle toys, right? We have already had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We should just have those turtle toys back. Secret McSquirrel, I guess they are mocking people for needing glasses now that they are older. Oh, they're 4 eyes. Well, I thought this might just be their thing. Like it might just be like they like 4 eyes as a kind of motif, but I didn't see that on their very limited website. It's possible there's some other website that I couldn't find when I was looking for them, but I don't know. If they were going to do this, they needed to bring back the transforming fries and burgers. Those were awesome, weren't they? They were. Yep. I would get those. I would have made my way to McDonald's. I take it this is America only. Probably. I mean, the only disclaimers are essentially at participating McDonald's. So I don't know. It's probably America. Were these created at 3 a.m. by a college student after a frat party? Don't know. What is a plant cactus flea market? Don't know. Let's see here. Don't want it. Won't buy. This isn't nostalgia to me. Bring back the adult size ball pit. That's right. You just have one pop-up McDonald's that builds a giant adult-sized play place. That would get news. That would get marketing, wouldn't it? Something that is sized like a triple the size for adults. That they would get coverage for that. Add a little 3D version of Littlest Hoeg's Dinosaur, and I might consider buying a meal. I'll tell McDonald's. You know what? Littlest Hoeg's Empire, we'll call it Littlest Hoeg, is going to be huge. The gaming dino continues to sell. It's pretty amazing from her, honestly. But she loves it. I have a Grimace figure still. I used to remember going to McDonald's where they would have like the seats where like some of the seats would be taken by one of the characters in like the greenhouse type room. Those were always cool. Yes, Top Gun Maverick. I can't say enough good things about that flick. Neither can I. One of my few 10 out of 10s. Maverick is awesome. Hoeg, I think Cactus Plant Flea Market might be a rebrand of Cactus Jack, which was Travis Scott's merch brand when he had his Mickey D's collaboration. So modern era price gouging in the vein of Supreme, unsure. Cactus Jack was affiliated with Travis Scott. Could be a rebrand, and they still have a deal with Travis Scott. Possibly. I don't know enough about any of this, and I am the absolute wrong person to ask anything about fashion brands. I have my series of sweaters that I pick up and I put on for these shows, and that is fashion to me. So yeah, definitely the wrong guy to ask. Oh my God, this is bringing back every suppressed memory. I should have never asked Lindsay Moore if she liked me. Make it stop. Do you ever have those? Do you ever think about that? Like a particularly tortured interaction from like high school or middle school or something, and it just pops into your head. You're like, oh, damn, I shouldn't have done that. I collected the Dalmatians. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Like the whole name, the market meal box, whatever it is. It is. It's ridiculous. Well, here I was thinking McDonald's had partnered with Adam and Eve. I feel so foolish. Yeah, that would have been a different adult Happy Meal. Definitely. Well, it is close to Halloween. Are they trying to freak us out? Maybe. I mean, they said it's doing all October, right? All of October. Hard pass. What the actual... I told you guys. I told you when I showed you the pictures, it'd be like, what? Can't believe that any marketing team came up with this and then pushed it. Right? Sometimes you get to the end of the marketing and you go, yeah, no, no. Mm-mm. I was hoping for a Happy Meal with an actual succulent instead of a toy. I really misread that headline. Wouldn't that be something? The liability issues there would be a problem as well, right? Because you could have a delightful little cactus in the Happy Meal and then somebody gets poked and you're getting sued. It would be very sad. I still have like 50 of the Mickey D's Beanie Babies in my attic. Yeah, I know my grandmother loved to collect those little guys back when they were out. Freaky makes me feel. We're going to Mickey D's for Happy Meals while on TDY then. What would a McDonald's Adam and Eve collab even look like? I can't even imagine. We're not going there, folks. This morning on Casual Friday, we're not that casual. But yeah, it is funny. It is funny. I love McDonald's milkshakes, but they're always broken. You can watch a documentary on their ice cream machines. We want the real TMNT, not the dodgy remakes. I actually just bought the old 80s cartoon, like one of the seasons, because it was on sale. So we're watching those with my kids. I say with my kids, that's actually a lie. Mostly watching them myself. They're not terribly interested. Late 80s and 90s had the best music in video games. They had very good ones, certainly. It's the big secret. Eating all that McDonald's food for years will make you grow extra body parts. I don't know what you could do with 4 eyes, honestly. I mean, I've worn glasses my whole life, but they don't really help me see better other than to get me back to what is normal. Let's see. Redefine characters from people's childhood and not be true to the original. Not good in most cases. It's the exact wrong direction for nostalgia play, isn't it? As a true Star Control 2 aficionado would know. One of the best games of all time. Absolutely. Oh, are you kidding me? They had Star Control 2. They had Final Fantasy 4 and 6. They had Chrono Trigger. They had all sorts of great stuff back in the late 80s, early 90s. You had all the good Sierra games, King's Quest, Space Quest, Hero Quest. Absolutely. Who is Travis Scott? He's like a singer. He had a virtual concert in Fortnite that they made a big deal out of. And then I thought he was in some kind of scandal or controversy, but I don't know for sure, so we won't go further than that. The article is depressing. Yeah. Maybe the toys were meant to insinuate that they were like flea market knockoffs. Things like Air Jordans and Levi jeans with one leg 4 inches longer than the other. I don't think so. I think flea market is in the name of their brand, but could be. I think you had the wrong site for the Cactus flea market. I'd rather have a trick-or-treat bucket. The little pumpkins. Cactus Jack is the name of Travis Scott's foundation and his business entity holding company of various subsidiaries. Is one of them Cactus Plant Flea Market? I don't know. All right. I still carry a Grimace comb. That's dedication. Also, first time I ate at Rotten Ronnie's was 1969. The fries were so good. I miss nostalgia. The Peace Patch, the McDonald's I grew up going to, was made to look like a giant library. It was remodeled in the last 3 or so years, and that hit me right in the nostalgia bone. They got rid of the Ronald McDonald too. Yeah, you lose something like that. It is crazy. Yes, the plant situation is so disappointing. If there's anybody that would love to have a tiny succulent put in her Happy Meal, it would be my wife, definitely. The McDonald's McRobots transforming food toys, those were some of the best. Absolutely. Put a tiki bar in that adult-sized playroom. I'm telling you, you would get coverage. You'd be on like CNN and stuff if you built an adult-sized play place for a McDonald's somewhere. Just one pop-up one in Iowa or wherever. Trust the lawyer to ruin the Cactus Happy Meals with reality and liability. Just believe me that there would be someone like me in that business meeting saying no. Right? That's what we do. There's a reason people hate lawyers, and one of the reasons is what we do is we parade horribles. Hey, what would happen if this did happen? How would this work? How would this work? And the business folks don't often like that. But hopefully we're providing good value by preventing you from losing good value. The Last Starfighter. Absolutely. Who doesn't love a movie premised around being good enough at a video game to go and join Star Wars? Sells itself. Travis Scott controversy you're thinking of is the Astroworld deaths? It is. That is what I'm thinking of. Absolutely. Travis Scott is a Kardashian baby daddy ×2. This is news to me, that, Sarah. I know a lot about a little, and a little about a lot. Oh, I missed a super chat. Oh, no. How long ago did I miss it? All right. Well, we're right at the end of the chat, so we'll see if we can go find it as we close up for today. But everybody, thank you so much for joining me on Casual Friday. And again, I'm sorry I didn't get the placeholder up earlier. Lawyers and Dragons is on for tomorrow at 10 a.m., but I do have to issue a caveat. I'm going to put that placeholder up. And one of the things that I have to give as a caveat is it could be hurricane affected. We don't know. We think it won't be, but it is possible that Lawyers and Dragons will need to be postponed. We'll know on the day. But it's currently planned for the 10 a.m. slot tomorrow as normal, and we'll see if anything happens from there. Otherwise, I'll see you then. Gecko Gamer, I found your super chat. I'm so sorry I missed it. I do my best on these folks. I really do. Is it nostalgia? Is it a toy? Is it art? No, it's a pathetic McDonald's marketing ploy. Honestly, I don't know how McDonald's signed up for it in exactly this fashion. It's kind of weird. I think they got convinced by some savvy marketing PR people that this was going to be the new hotness, and I have my doubts. Then again, I've been wrong about fads and the new hotness and whatnot. For all I know, it's going to be the thing to purchase and otherwise have in your collection. I doubt it, but what do I know, right? In any event, I will see you on Lawyers and Dragons on Saturday. We've got the Bitcast on Sunday over at Season Gaming. I might do a virtual legality. I might rest my voice. Either way, I hope you guys had a great deal of fun. I love Casual Fridays with you all, and I hope you have a great weekend to follow. One last super chat. Brady Nichols, I have plastic plates and drink glasses with McDonald's characters. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think I had some and like enough times through the wash and they just kind of become clear glasses. I think I had some of those, but I really appreciate it. Have a good day, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I will see you when I see you here on the Hoeg Law YouTube channel. Goodbye, everybody.